I'm just gonna transfer you guys to this screen over here so I can have my other one. Then we can share the tab, the window, the da 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 pop pop. You guys are seeing my presentation? I'm so proud of myself when I get those IT things rolling. I know it doesn't seem much, but it's not my forte. So when I remember, it's pretty excited. So I confess that this one, it's a very interesting subject for myself personally, because patience, anger, and silence, I'm not too sure I'm pretty good with any of those. I cannot say I'm the person that can, be content with silence. Um, or I can silence my head and my thoughts most of the time. I used to be a person that was very, what is the word in English? Immediative. Like, like I didn't have any patience. I get like frustrated, but that it's improving. And I always say that thanks to Alex, because he's pretty much a very like, no, he's not pretty much. He is like, I used to joke that he's kind of the incarnation of Buddha, because gosh, that man has like a dam of patience, like I never saw him lose control. Um, so at least on the exterior, like I know sometimes he went through some turmoils. I experienced that, but like even though on the moments that I know he went through some particular moments on his life that I know he was upset and everything, like he always was able to maintain like a nice tone of conversation, keep calm and move on. Like he's his kind of vibe. But me, not so well. But I learned a lot with him. So I can say I improve a bit. So reading through this material and getting prepared for tonight, and I said, funny thing, like, when those things keep rounding and round, like going around, and always meet you again. So it seems like I still have to improve on that. And for me, I completely understand it's going to be a forever improving. But yeah, so let's go. Please be patient with me. So, oops, if I click, it works. Also, other thing I noticed when I was preparing this, there's a few slides that really touch the subject of the word, like the meaning of the word, of the word of meekness, what it means, like what Jesus was trying to achieve saying that word. In Portuguese is another word, but in English it's got a bit more complex. So these slides explains like what is the meaning of that word, what Jesus was trying to achieve when he say that. But let's remember that Jesus didn't speak in English back then. It was like Arabic. Sorry, my ignorance. I completely forgot the
Aramaic.
Aramaic. Yes, I knew it was something with Arab something. So most likely things got lost for translation. So we have no. Sorry, madam. I think it's Alex. I think Alex just got here. So a lot of things maybe got lost through translation, but they try to keep the meaning. So here where we are. So the word in the dictionary, according to these slides, is like weak. That means like tame, timid, mild, bland, weak, docile, like so. All those meanings, spiritless and broken. So it's kind of a word that try to condensate all that meaning. So when Jesus was trying to refer to the human beings like us, like the meek, like we as meek persons, from the context of made, and refer primarily to our relationship with God. So through translation, some people try to use the word humiliated. So blessed are the humiliated people, because then will be the God's kingdom, something around that. The to say in the Bible. That is kind of equivalent to meekness. And then the subject goes a lot around like the root of the word on Hebrew and Greek, and a specific word for synonyms of humilities and all of that. And honestly, I'm not gonna dwell much on that. Like we know, like sometimes we keep losing time to the really root of the word because of comes from ages and ages ago through nowadays, like how we used to communicate. So when we say meekness, let's try to condensate that on what Jesus wants us to be, like that sentiment of being a human being, love, compassion, empathy, be humble, all those kind of things that help us do, like build who we are, like they're human beings. Is that all right? Because it's a very complex word to really try to grasp what it is. So that's the famous say in the Bible: blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, not the God's kingdom. Well, but earth is like part of, God's kingdom. It's part of the whole, just a little part of his creations. So in the Bible, when Jesus said that, he combined gentleness, moderations, affability, patience as attributes of the law. If you are meek, means like you have those characteristics, those skills or characteristics as who you are. Like if we're meek, so we are considering like we have this affability, docility, patience, as consequence, like and then we condemn violence, anger and things like that, because that should not be part of who we are, even though it's part of the process we go through, as we are born as simple and ignorant as a spirit, and through the trajectory of our reincarnations, we go through those emotions. They are not bad emotions. They are just part of who we are. And there he is, and help us to understand. But our goal is to improve. Like, it's like if we're angry, we need to understand why that make me angry. Like, why I'm so upset with that situation. Not all those feelings is like a demoniac feeling. No, it's not about that. It's part of who we are. It's part of emotion. It's part of being a human being. But like the thing is, we have to look to those emotions, and as we always say here, we have to try to understand where those emotions came from. Like, why I'm so frustrated today. Oh, what happened? Maybe I had a bad traffic, get stuck for whatever long that was, or someone didn't deliver it, something at work. I don't know. There's so many things that sometimes kind of don't go through the plane that can kind of engage those feelings on us. So before we act on those, that is the most important of it. We feel there is no way for us to block ourselves from feeling it. But I truly believe, and it's something that I try, again, I say, again, not you, usually I'm really good at it, but I try to understand where they are, like where that come from, and before I react. The thing that we just talked last week, like before you react to something, like try to understand, oh, okay, this happened because A, B, C, D. So what I can do to, manage that anger, to manage that frustration, and so on. Is that all good to now? Yeah. And because you guys are here, it seems like I'm not looking to you, but I am. I have my notes here. So, and then the text said that Jesus was not the first one to state that the importance of meekness, of this feeling that, I group all those feelings that we just talk about it. But he was the first one to collect in that what we call organize a list of characteristics to perfect human being. The text brought to our attention that Emmett Fox, author of the entire book about the Sermon of the Mount, state that this beatitude is among of the half dozen most important verses on the Bible. Why? because Jesus present that as a desirable quality that say, how can I put that on a better way? Let me just put the right words here. So when Jesus recognized that, he presents meekness as a highly desirable quality. He prefaces with, blessed are the poor in spirit, and blessed are those who mourn. He places within a context that contains quality which are highly similar to meekness. Again, from the beginning of this slide, is the words, the ideal words for every individual is different from what that Jesus said. Giving way to the modern people look upon those who are meek, Jesus' statement about meekness is almost incomprehensible for our day sometimes. So that's why I said we're not going to be, stuck here on much on the wording meanings. Let's just trying to always put our minds on that, what it means for us, what we are trying to achieve when we say blessed are the meek, is that people that, huh? So blessed are the strong who can hold their own. So that would be like a wrong statement as well. So otherwise we're going to be clash here with different contexts, different ways of interpreting those words. So let's just stay with the simple ways that we agree on the beginning. So why Jesus says those words, that those who are meek will inherit the earth? When he also says the one that should renounce the things in this world. The answer, it's simple. On earth, we have the opportunity to grow spiritually, and advance on our spiritual journey. As I said in the beginning, those kind of feelings that people say is bad, like anger, frustrations, and so on, so on, so on, they're not the bad feelings. They're just feelings. It's part of who we are. So if we don't feel, we don't know how to improve. We don't know how to overcome them. As last week we talked about grieving, it's part of the process when we lose someone. There is no way for us to block ourselves from feeling. It's part of our nature. So these feelings are important for us as a grow. Again, it's important, but the most important things is not to react on those feelings. And most of it, as we always say, breathing, try to detach, right, Jackson? Detach yourself the situation, look at it, and then try to, tackle that on a better way possible with the tools that we have at your disposal, at your disposal on that situation and at that time of the day. And, because I honestly believe that things that usually kind of start my anger like 10, 15, 20 years ago before I met Alex, for example, nowadays it's like, oh gosh. Of course, that also comes with maturity. I'm older now. I went through more experience. So, very simple things that today for me are very simple, died from 20 years ago, could not understand that because I didn't have the experience that I have today. So sometimes it's a very hard to say or to approach those very complex feelings and how to approach them because they're complex, and the only way to go through them is through experience. So that's why we always say breathe and all, because that will keep you improving yourself. Yes, Jax, you can say it was Jax who raised a hand.
I just sent a message. I should be a saint then for the age.
You should be a saint for what? For
The age.
the age. So as I said on the beginning when I was reading through the text and say, oh, this come back to me, so I should keep learning of that. And when I was reading through the text, I would say, yeah, and then I come to that conclusion. It's not coming from like a cocky way to say, oh no, I'm better now. So like, no, it's not. It's from like honestly from a humble position that like I try to observe who I was 20 years ago or so, the experience and the things I went through, and who I am today. Like how I'm managing my feelings, how I improve. What tools did I use? And so that's what I was thinking about it when I was reading about these. Like how to approach those feelings, how to I could come here tonight and try to guide this conversation with what kind of materials, because I always try to bring something personal because it's important. I think the best way for us to learn things is that famous like monkey see monkey do, like we seek for examples. I'm not, please, by all means, I'm not saying I'm the best example here, but when we look at someone and we get inspired or we see how someone overcome that situation, help people to maybe look through those feelings or actions on different perspectives. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe my way is not the best, but like maybe you listen to me, you maybe improve and find a better way to overcome your feelings, how to overcome anger, how to overcome frustration. So any experience will inspire someone like either to follow that path or even to think like about something better to improve. And that is the beauty of the progress. All right. So that's what the texts say. Like those emotions kind of help us to get where we are today. So don't kind of banish them, saying they are bad. Yes, they're not pleasant, I would say, but they are important keys on building who we are and help us to improve ourselves as spirits. All good and through here? Anyone has any comments to now? No? Oops, get out of the slide. So, patience. Patience. That's a very good thing that I really think I'm still have to work a bit. And I will be keeping working on that. So, according to the text, patience is a virtue that enables us silent to submit. I cannot say that I'm always silently. Not because we are either placid or indifferent, but because we have learned to seek further consolation beyond the boundaries of the present that render the tribulations of this life secondary and futile. It's pretty much pretty words here, and I agree with them, as that just summarize in a better way what I tried to explain a couple of minutes ago. Is like when we have the patience, is that small moment when before we explode or react to a situation, we try to breathe in, and as, oh, good dear Lord, give me patience to deal with it, trying to remove ourselves from the situation, observe like all the, like what happened, what that came from, what is going to be the consequences if I do A, B, C, D. I know sometimes you don't have the time, but patience comes from that place when we start to learn to take a time before we react to the situation, when like I come from these moments of silence, like when you kind of go inside ourselves and trying to analyze that situation, instead of just shouting to the world and throw things away. So it comes from that point of view of retain, breathe, analyze, and then react the better way you can. So, as we just said here, we should, at all costs, we should try our best to guard us against anger, to feel that frustration, this anger inside of ourselves, to be on constant, freaking out, or because that will lead to an array of other problems for ourselves, like stress, even depression, put our relationships in jeopardize, and so on, so on, so on. So again, anger is just a feeling that is part who we are, it's part of our nature, and it's part of come to this world and have experience that will, again, as we always say here, invited us to use our creativity to react the better way, and like, trying to apply the teachings of Jesus of, benevolence, empathy, love, no judgment, and all of that. And always pretty, but we know that sometimes anger, they just came. And like, sometimes it's just a little trigger that you need, that something that triggers that on you. And it's okay. We have to say, okay, I thank you for that, like that situation. And trying to remove yourself, breathing, searching you how the best way to approach that and react on a better way. So you could learn and avoid to hurt people through the process. So that's where the patience needs to come from. It's not about just say anger is bad and no, I'm not feeling it, because you will feel. There is no way to avoid that. I mean, it will, with more practice, with more we're evolving, with more we understand, with more knowledge and things like that. For example, as I said, there are things that usually trick that on me 20 years ago. Nowadays, I laugh at it and say, oh my gosh, I was so stupid. Not stupid, ignorant. Like, just like with time and knowledge, we improve that. But we improve our, what is the word for that? Our tolerance, to the anger come. And that just come with experience, unfortunately. There is no way for that. So it's part of the process. So embrace it. And if there is no way to avoid you being angry, just try to remove yourself, breathe in, silently go inwards, analyze if you have time. As I said, Alex is really good with that. Sometimes when he's like, I know something frustrates him, he always say, oh, look, I cannot talk now. I need some time to process this. And he can say that very calmly, like, like nothing is going on. The word is not ending, like nothing is broken. No one is screaming. He's like, okay, I cannot talk about this now. I need some time. And he can go to bed and sleep. I'm the opposite. I lose sleep. I'm trying to learn. So it's on that sense, it just come with experience. Nowadays, I can try when I'm angry with something and he comes and push me to talk. And I say, look, if I talk now, I'm going to say something that I will regret. So I'm learning to hold, to analyze, and come to talk when I'm ready to. So it's that. Embrace when you're angry and try your best with tools that you have to analyze, go inside of yourself, breathe in, and then, with a breath out, start to, make your choices and react to that situation with the best as you can. And if you cannot achieve that, nirvana of the best way to approach a situation, it's okay. It's a lesson learned. The next time you're probably going to have more, instead of breathing for a minute, you're going to breathe for 5, or maybe you're going to take a night to sleep on, and so on. Yes, Jax?
The question, if you come back to your slide, the question I ask you, if you look back, do you have more, do you remember having more regrets from not acting angrily, from not, standing anger in a situation, or regrets of having been angry while you should then have just a bit of patience?
Sorry, are you asking if I have more regrets if I react or if I don't react? Is that what you're
Now,
saying?
in terms of regrets, do you have more regrets from not have been angry when you think you should be, or the opposite?
The opposite, yeah. I still remember the ways that I react some situations that I but again, I can only tell you that because today I have more experience and more maturity to analyze, die from 20 years ago. So I try not to dwell on that because, as we always discuss here, we have to try to look at ourselves and just see, oh, child, you should know better, but it's okay. You were learning, Of course, some situations I regret the things I said back then, but I know I cannot come back and change it. So
Yeah,
I try my best to just look back, and then when I have something similar presented to me, I try my best to analyze and say, okay, no, that does not gonna work if I react same way of die 20 years ago react, So, but again, if you ask Di 20 years ago, like if she regret to act on that way, she would say, no, I'm right, because that Di didn't know better. Di today knows a little bit better. And I try to forgive myself for that and
Yeah,
move on.
I'm just highlight this this phrase on the post that says, "If you are patient in one moment of anger, you will escape 100 days of sorrow."
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So yeah, that's what I said. Like that today I learned, and I praise Alex because he taught me to, don't shout when things happen. Like nowadays, I can confident most of the time. I'm better at that, and and again, I've only learned because I went through. I have experience wasn't that those experiences weren't so good. Like the consequences, and now I learn, and that's the part, and that is the beauty, and for that I'm grateful. So there is no everything be grateful. So that's what I'm when I was reading through the material, I was thinking about it, like how I could present that, like, because we are angry sometimes. It is what it is, it's part of our human nature. So it's how, again, same context as last week, is how we react to those feelings that is the most important, because the feeling are just feelings. It's part of to build who we are. How you react, that's going to have the consequences that you have to deal and live with it. Thank you, Jackson.
Thanks, Di.
So silence. I cannot say I'm a very adept. Think I was trying to look for that word, to silence. Like I cannot work in silence. Believe it or not, silence, like no sound, kind of start to kind of I lose concentration. I need like some music, I need some noise, because my mind work better that way. But that's not what the texts are saying. But I think it's funny. Maybe some motivation there for me to maybe work more on that, to be a bit more silent, enjoy not having too much noise around me. But that anyway, that's for me to worry about it. So 13 virtues, silence. The wise advice of Benjamin Franklin is speak not but what may benefit others or yourself. Avoiding trifling conversation. Yeah, I need some work on that.
Gossips.
Yeah, who doesn't love a gossip? But not like gossip about people's life. For example, I would like Alex will bet money if I am at a line on a bank, grocery shop, or whatever. I will engage conversations wherever is around me. Or I will be, unless I'm listening to my audiobooks, then I will be on my own, enjoy my audiobooks here and doing my own business around. But like if I don't have my audiobooks or anything to distract me, I will easily start a conversation with someone. That is beautiful, like I came across with so many opportunities in my life because as my lovely husband likes to point it out, I love to invite random people to my life. But sometimes I do agree that I speak too much when I should be, listen more. So it's a lesson for me. So maybe you take your own, make your own evaluations of yourself on that subject, and we move on that. So Abraham Lincoln, he said, better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak out and remove all doubt. So in a sense, if you don't have anything better to say, you better be quiet. So even though if people will make fun of you, that kind of stuff. And then I agree, like, even though I joke about talking a lot, I think Spiritism, after I started to study Spiritism and open my view for this more spiritual approach of life, that helped me. I joke a lot about talk too much, but most of the times this is like joke. I try my best to not speak. What does it say? There's a saying in English, when you speak evil of people.
You?
Yeah, not too sure if that's the word. I was thinking about yesterday when I was reading the material, I should have taken notes when that came to my mind. But in a sense, I will, most of the time I will talk like just, random things. I try my best, like, to not gossip,
You
the
can
real
say
gossip.
you
Huh?
can say maledicence. I think it's
Yeah,
maledicence.
malignance, when it's about like something serious, about someone's private matter and that kind of stuff. I like to think I improve on that, and I have to thank Spiritism, because I know, like, nowadays I learned our words have the power. I will probably will be talk all day long about nonsense, some books that I read, some things work around, but like I think when Abraham Lincoln said that is on that sense, like when you mallead sense, when you speak things that really can hurt people, and not about gossip, about your books, like the TV shows and that kind of stuff. I think that can be quite entertainment at the time. So just keep that in thought. That's my take when I read that. So we're back to the meek word. A meek person remains cool when others become heated, when others react straight away. They know that God's justice prevails always. They seek to remain true to their calling and meet God's standards. So that's our goal, when everything is about to go to chaos, a meek person, that kind of person that Jesus was aiming when he said that, is on that sense. If you found that place when you can remove yourself the situation and understand that doesn't matter what's going on, God is justice and everything's gonna be okay. That's what we say always here. Like, everything's gonna be okay. Everything serves a purpose. Everything, there is a reason. So that's kind of come back to your question, Jackson. Like, if I regret or not regret, as I said, I regret, but I try to understand that, as I say, it is what it is, and I'm only the die you guys know today because I went through that, and that helped to build who I am, and hopefully, dying 20 years in the future will be a better version of the die you're talking today, because it's all those experiences will build, and hopefully, will help me to improve myself, and hopefully improve you guys on the other side of this little screen as well. So the good return for the evils disarms the enemy. Once hatred is converted into surprise, and surprise into admiration, by awakening one's somnolent conscience, this lesson may produce a deep impression upon the individual. Thus, we may, through enlightenment, save a soul from perversity. I think is what we already been talking all night long. Is like trust in God. Trust, because everything's gonna be okay. And again, if we put examples from last week about, like, for example, when we lose someone and then we can get angry, react, and all those things we build up, we need to trust. And everything be thankful, everything be grateful, everything there is a reason, everything there is a purpose in life. So everything that happens to us will help us to improve, learn, and progress. Colleen and Yvonne?
There is a great sense, as in it makes sense, a great sense to sitting in silence. Because when another is discussing or acting out or whatever it is, if our mind is full of response or retort or reaction, then we block the inspiration that is divine. So we push our own will and our own sense of ego and superiority onto the situation. But if we sit in silence and free our minds and our hearts from engaging with the moment, and allow for the breath of God to flow through us, for divine spirit to anoint the situation, then the words that come forth after this silence will be guided and beautiful and easing and soothing rather than hot and fiery and full of self-importance and self-gratitude. Yes, but the silence is so important because it stops the vicious circle or vicious cycle that happens when we engage with another in some kind of altercation. Backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. It is action, reaction. But the breath that we take, allowing for God or the blessings of life and love to rain down upon us, then we are guided beautifully. Yes, yes. Sometimes we forget that we are not the ego. In fact, we are everything but the ego. Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you, girls. Yeah, that's beautiful. So that's the question. When should we be silent? And I would add something about this silence. I would say when we should remove ourselves, take a break. Because your silent, your moment to think about before you react is maybe have a good night of sleep, maybe go and go do some exercise, maybe play with your dog, maybe read a book. So try to take your mind from that situation, that stressful situation, and then gives you a break and a time to breathe. So I would add a little bit more to that silence moment, to that, to like breathe and take a break before you react, to go inside ourselves, like seek in silence, like that moment where you allow God to work through you so you can better react to the situations. So the texts are saying there is a very interesting article entitled "Are You Sharp Tongue?" that proposes the question: must the truth hurt? So when is time for us to hold our tongue, to be in silence? Honesty is the best policy, or am I only being honest? The truth hurts. Wrong is wrong and it must be corrected. I've been through a lot, so it comes out when I express myself. It's just my sense of humor. Don't take it seriously. Did you recognize any of those phrases? Have you heard any of that? I confess that I use some of them sometimes. Again, it's a forever learning. So when we say something and it's kind of have this veil, on this case, the example of these words are like, say, I'm just being honest, Are you really being honest, or you hurt, or you're just hiding the truth of hurting someone? So those are the moments when you're about to say those kinds of things that the text and the Spiritism and God and Jesus and everyone is invite you to be silent, to hold your tongue, take a moment to breathe, to think about your react and say something that you could regret, and worse, could hurt someone. So just some food for thought as well. And it's just a text saying the same way, the things that we just discussed here, that those excuses probably painful. Now we really talk about it and familiar. So when we say we have to be mindful, if we are really trying to achieve or help someone, there is that, I just remember now, there is that, I think in English it says the rule of 5 minutes. If what you're about to say can be fixed on that instant, then okay, say it. If you're not, then maybe you hold your tongue. I think there is a say about that. It just came to my mind now where I'm talking. Anyone know that? There is a saying around those lines that if whatever you're about to say, if it can be fixed on the next 5 minutes, then say it. Otherwise, take a moment, then you can say later. Because otherwise you're just gonna maybe, cause more constrangimento.
Not trouble.
More, it's not trouble. It's not trouble the word. Constrangimento in English?
It's not, it's not embarrassment. Is
Yeah, I think it's like you could probably embarrass that person, that kind of stuff. So it just popped on my mind here where I'm reading again. So yeah, so if you're about to use any of those kind of sentence here, are you really being truthful, or your truth is concealed by that feeling you aiming to hurt, not even consciously sometimes, you just think you're being funny, but like we have to be mindful when we say that, at someone, because we might be hurt or embarrass them when we don't have to. So just keep that in mind. And there is this say that saying nothing, sometimes saying the most. And that's a very powerful phrase, because silent, when we don't react, is on that sense. When you don't, for example, let's get a very silly, common example here. If you're in a traffic and then something happened, little crash, things like that, and someone started shouting at you, you being silent, maybe, you're gonna avoid a lot of things and say more. It says the most, you're going to remain calm. You want to control the situation, most likely avoid that to escalate. Maybe the person seeing you, remaining calm and not, shouting back will help that person, to kind of calm down. So silence is a very powerful tool on those kinds of situations. And that's what I think that Emily was thinking about it when we there is a song with when you say nothing at all. What is that part of the song?
You say it best when
Yeah,
you say nothing at all.
yeah. It's about that. So there are even songs about it. So I think that's what Emily here was trying to achieve with that, is on that sense, sometimes it's not about words, sometimes it's about actions. So also that could probably my mind now is jumping through other things. For example, those 5 languages of love, for some people, it's not about saying that love, is how they demonstrate love, is acts of service, is touching. So it doesn't mean we're not saying something, doesn't mean you don't care or you not act upon, but silence is a very important tool on those anger issues, to try to de-escalate the situation, keep everybody around you calm, so we could think through and, engage in a normal conversation and try to achieve common sense to sort it out the situation, and so, yeah, I was thinking about that. So silence, we need to learn when it seems necessary, to reprimand with kindness, to discuss without heat. We already been talking about it. To judge all things with benevolence and moderation. I would change to the word judge here to observe, to analyze, but for the lack better of, could not edit that, but it's on that sense, because we have to analyze the situation. We have to judge, okay, what is going on here? Okay, if we remain silent, calm, that will probably help that person do this, that, da, 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 da. So our focus should always be on solving the problem, not add the fuel to the fire, not throw like sticks to the fire and make that kaboom. Not just talking about it, but really trying to achieve a common sense or gossip about it. So that's what silence will help us to achieve. That's what we need to learn when we try to remain silent before we react to a situation. So here is just like that page I thought was a bit funny, to be honest. It's just like a quick guidelines, like what that will achieve, like if you remain silent, that, and if you need to talk with someone, so they're suggesting us like get few people involved on the matter as possible. In fact, no one else needs to know about it unless it escalates. So let's not gossip about situation. I think here they are trying to achieve in a more practical way, like how to remain silent through situations. Concentrate on the matter at hand and not bring up past grievance. So if you have a situation, like let's just if you have, like, for example, argument with your partner, try to remain calm and discuss that situation. Don't try to throw things from the past that is not relevant to the matter at the moment. That will just add fuel to the fire and will not help to solve the problem. So that's when they say remain silent if you have nothing better to add. Do not burn bridges or threaten to others, as ultimatums. Yeah. Remember that we are not trying to lose, but to gain our brothers and sisters. Jesus is blunt with sin, but kind and patient with the sinners. That last one I thought was pretty nice. I never thought on that way, when Jesus was like very very strong when he say like, go and do not sin and all of that, trying to follow this path and all of that. But he was always kind and generous with the sinners, because it's about the same thing we spoke on the beginning. It's about like that build who you are. So it's through those experiences that you are who you are today, and you learn and you improve. So it's who you are. The past is in the past. Let it go, and build your life from now on. Try, go and do not sin anymore. And I embrace and accept you as you are. So it's on that sense. But I thought it was a pretty nice phrase to put on the bottom of that. Silence. The same subject. We keep that. A mind fed by godly wisdom will be better able to follow this advice and control the most wild of all members, the tongue. As we grow in that great wisdom, our words become fresh and reliable. We lose the sharp edge from our tongues. So when we learn to silence ourselves, to remove ourselves from that situation, take a moment to breathe and analyze before we react, is that famous say, like if you hold your thought, if you hold your tongue, you will save yourself some grieving and, not regret things you didn't want to say on that moment. Because sometimes we say things on the heat of the moment and we regret. And most likely there is no really intention on those words, like maybe it's not what you're thinking on that moment clearly, is not like reflect your real feelings toward that situation, that person or whatever. But on the heat of the moment, we can lose in our tongue and just blow it out, because as Colleen Beautiful pointed out, we let our ego, flourish and take control, and then we just say the word. So silence will help and educated us to hold that tongue, breathe in, and then speak with more wisdom, with more consistency after we analyze the situation, after we considering who we're going to be talking to, what we can achieve if we approach the situation on this way or that way. So what would be the best way to conduct whatever is going on in our lives? So silence will help us to grow and train ourselves so we can, not have that mistake to say things that we will regret later. And sometimes it's really hard to, once the word is out, we cannot put it back in. And as we know, the words have power. So sometimes if you can hurt someone with a word, worse than if you slap them on their face. So silence will help us to educate ourselves with that. This is just some sayings about people, like what silence achieve, but we've been talking about these, through the slide. So I don't think it's that much relevant. So it's just about people from, on that sense, like what silence help you achieve. So I'm not going to dwell much on that subject. So this part's interesting when they say, very true are the things you say, but I ask you if you can find anything worse or more stinking than tongue. All men perish by the tongue. By the tongue, men come into poverty. By the tongue, cities are destroyed. All evil comes from the tongue. So it's what we been talking on already. It's about the power of a word, like when we say, when we speak, like, you achieve like deals by talk with someone, you you just can destroy someone with your words. You can destroy a city through orders that you do through your tongue. So it's on that sense, when we react and then we say, if you're in a position that your role has some power, you can destroy many families, like on the company that you work, if you're, I don't know, in politics. So everything that we say has a power to build or destroy. So it's on that sense, be mindful when you're going to say something. So because you can either build something beautiful or destroy with your words. And then this is a say from Martin Luther King that he said, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. I was reflecting on that, and I was a bit trying to analyze what that was coming from, and I think when he said that is on that sense, for example, when a situation happened to you, let's just say like a bad situation or situations that come to challenge us. And then he said like, you're not going to remember the words of your enemy or what leads you to that situation, but the silence of your friends. I think on that sense would be like if they help you or not, like if they are there for you. That's what I understood when I was reading that. So I leave it open for you guys to take that into your conscience and have your own thoughts about it. That's what he said. So that's what was my intake when I read that.
I think exactly what you said. I think it's not that silence that we're talking about that they're saying there. Is you remember what friends didn't have your back.
Yeah. And I think with that, it's about us to reflect. Even though you're talking about it, remove yourself, be silent, but sometimes situations demand us to, lend a hand to our friends. Maybe you don't have the most wise words to say, but silence again can reflect like how to react, or like I just said in the past, like the act of service, like how do you love someone by, act of service, touching, or things like that. In a sense, like maybe you don't have the best words to offer your friends when they're going through a bad situation or a challenged situation, but you can offer like a hug. You can offer something else to them. So I think is that what, when he said that, was that what he was trying to achieve. Yes, Jackson?
Yeah, I think the science mentioned by Luther King here is in a different context. It's where silent is not good. Okay, so silent is gold in our context, in the things we are talking about, the meek. But silence can be evil if you, when you should speak out, when you should act, you remain silent. And this is where Martin Luther is talking about. It was something about prison, and the clergy was silent. It didn't say anything about it. So that's what the thing is, when silence is bad.
Yeah. Thank you for put beautiful, better than I could. So blessed are the meek, for then will inherit the earth. And that ends our night and invite us to reflect on our silence, on our own moment of silence and reflections. How, to improve ourselves. But try not to be too harsh on yourself. Stop presenting. as we always say here, it's always a learn process. I was like thinking through when I was reading and saying, what should I say? How will I present this? And again, I like to think it like we are better today than we were yesterday, and tomorrow we're going to improve more. It's part of the process for us to learn to be silent, speak when it's necessary. It's part of the beauty of being here and share this life with people that we encounter in our way. There is no coincidence. Like everything that we encounter is part of the process for us that will help us grow. So I think I was very interested. To be very honest, as I said, on the beginning, I was like laughing at myself and saying, oh, look, me talk about silence. I was like making fun of myself for that situation. But then after read once and twice and say, I try to analyze myself. I am doing this, what the text is like, invite me to think and to reflect. And I'm very pleased to say that I'm doing my best. Like I'm doing better. So it's okay. So I think like it's not about us try to be too rash to judge like if we're doing the best way, but like analyze, it's okay. I'm doing it. I will do better today, after tonight, after listening or reading this. Like tomorrow I'll be better to when the situations like that come across myself. So that's was my take about those texts, about look back, be grateful, learn, keep going, and within time, with more knowledge, keep ourselves on this path of trying to absorb the wisdom, and everything, not only Spiritism, but life as itself bring to us, that build who we are and will help us to, keep going. As Dory always says, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. And that's it for me. Anyone have any more comments, anything to add to this night's topic? No? So I have a little meditation that I put some words, then I asked to improve. So I'm just going to invite you.
Are you
Snowball.
going to speak?
Yes,
It doesn't work with this sound, I think.
it does. I did once.
Oh.
Can you hear the music on the background? You're not hearing? It didn't work the last time. Okay, now I did my IT. I was so happy in the beginning. Oh, I need to stop recording. I was so happy in the beginning that I did by myself. Manage recording, stop recording. Stop recording.